Mika and Joe went to Mar-a-lago. For 7 years, you defamed this guy, you lied about him, you maligned him and his supporters, and now you want to go because your ratings are down. Let's face it, and you're a transactional scumbag. That's it. You need to suck up. You need to ask for forgiveness. There's a lot of people in battleground states that worked their butts off for President Trump. They should shake his hand before these losers get to go down to Mar-a-Lago. They get in the back of the line, they ask for forgiveness. They don't get to jump the line and then tell him how wrong he is to his face. Screw you guys. Who the hell do you think you are? You were epically wrong and the American people rejected you. And your ratings are down to show for it. And they act like somehow they did their job. They were wrong, they're biased, and they shouldn't be given the time of day. All right, guys, I hope you had a great weekend. Weekends don't mean anything to the Trump transition, do they? It just keeps coming and coming and coming. Lots of transition news coming your way. I'm going to talk about it all. I was down at Mar-a-Lago firsthand talking to the folks. I saw everybody down there. And I posted a bunch of the photos on my social media. There's a funny little picture that I put of me and Tucker and Charlie Kirk, small, medium, large. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's at Sean M. Spicer, but let's just say I'm the short, Tucker's the medium, and Charlie Kirk is the tall. Take a look at that. I'll tell you all about what I saw at Mar-a-Lago, what I'm hearing, what's going on. Big show coming your way right now. Before I get to that, the Democrats are still in control for the next little while, as you know, and they used a bunch of money to hire 50,000 new IRS agents. And the problem is now they're going after when they need to make more money because they want more power, because they want to fund more government. So they're sending out these things called pay up notices, which means, hey, personal business, we don't care. Maybe COVID, money that you shouldn't have taken or should have declared, but we're going to come after you. And we've talked about the Department of Justice and the government coming after you. The IRS, they've got all those resources. If they come after you, whether they send you a letter, a call, or knock on your door, do me a favor, get professional help. I think the best in the business are the folks at Tax Network USA. They've been in this business for years. They know the back lines to the IRS, which agents to talk to, which agents to avoid, who can make a deal, who will make your life less painful. These guys are the experts. They've recovered over $1 billion for their clients because they know what they're doing and they've got the expertise. Don't try to go at the IRS by yourself. Give the folks at Tax Network USA a call. It's free just to talk with them. That's the deal. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/Sean, tnusa.com/Sean, SEAN, taxnetworkusa.com. So tnusa.com/Sean. All right. I wanted to start off by this epic photo that went viral down, President Biden's down in South America in Rio at this APEC summit. And this photo goes viral. Now, the backstory is apparently it's alphabetical order. So United States is in the back, but China is in the front because C, right? But that's not how it was perceived online. Everybody just looked at it like emblematic of where the Biden administration stands in the world right now, which is in the back corner, China in the front. And that's unfortunate. Luckily, it's post-election and we know what's coming down the check. But guess what happened over the weekend? We're going to talk about a lot of the appointments. Mika and Joe, yes, that Mika and Joe from MSNBC, whose ratings are down 49%, went to Mar-a-Lago. Now, I want to play you this clip because this came out this morning and I want to show you what they said. Take a listen.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
Okay, so here's my problem. For 7 years, you defamed this guy, you lied about him, you maligned him and his supporters, you completely lied about the state of the campaign and the support that he had. And now you want to go because your ratings are down. Let's face it. And you're a transactional scumbag. That's it. you want to go suck up to him. But do you notice what Joe said after that? I made it clear of my disagreements with him. I told him about abortion and mass deportations because now I got to suck up to you, the left-wing MSNBC audience. But I was mighty and tough when I talked to him. Well, first of all, you were wrong. You need to suck up. You need to ask for forgiveness. And the idea that President Trump is good with this is, I hope that these guys just get trashed. There's a lot of people in battleground states, Georgia and Pennsylvania and Arizona, and non-battleground states that worked their butts off for President Trump. They should shake his hand before these losers get to go down to Mar-a-Lago. I'm sorry. They get in the back of the line. They ask for forgiveness. They don't get to jump the line and then tell him how wrong he is to his face. Screw you guys. Who the hell do you think you are? You were epically wrong and the American people rejected you. And your ratings are down to show for it. I actually can't believe that this is where it is, but this is emblematic of where the media is. The Sunday shows, I tell you guys all the time, I watch them so you don't have to. Like Meet the Press was Trump hater, Matt Gaetz hater, a Democratic panel. Like, why are Trump's nominees not to get through? What do you guys not understand? We won. We kept the Republicans, took the Senate, kept the House, and took the presidency. And instead, what they want their audience to know is, what are Democrats going to do to oppose the Trump agenda? That's Kristen Welker's mentality. She goes on there and fights and tells Republicans how bad they are and how stupid they are. They don't get it. That show should be canceled. If you're watching Meet the Press, I have an addiction. I have to watch Sunday shows. I'm trying to break it. I'm sorry. But you shouldn't have to. I'll tell you if anything happens. Trust me. Don't give them the ratings. They are horrible, bad people. All of these guys. And they act like somehow they did their job. They were wrong. They're biased. And they shouldn't be given the time of day. I mean, that's just it. Plain and simple. Don't take my word on it. Look at it and then look at Mika and Joe going in there. Oh, please, Mr. President. I'm so sorry. By the way, it'll be really interesting what his take is because I have a feeling that Joe's little diatribe there isn't exactly how it went down. You know, they went down there because they know, and Trump, I'm sure, was just in his glory going, all right, come on in. Tell me how wrong you were. But the idea that these guys get the time of day, unbelievable. And then I want to show you this. This is again, this is the crap we're dealing with. From the people who talk about misinformation, this is the New York Times. They fact-checked RFK. Okay, now, what did they fact-check him on? This is a New York Times article by Christina Jewett and Julie Cresswell delved into President Trump's nominee for the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, right? He's obviously been critical, as you know, of processed foods and seed oils and all this stuff. So this is them. This is what they write. RFK has been critical of Fruit Loops because of the high number of artificial ingredients, especially when compared to the Canadian version. You remember, I think we showed this, a video where he showed, hey, this is Fruit Loops in the U.S., this is Fruit Loops in the United States. Now, the New York Times says, no, this is false. He's just making it up. They proceeded to say, well, the Canadian version, now this is, I want to read you, this is amazing. The authors proceed to say that in the Canadian version, they use natural colors derived from blueberries and carrots, while the U.S. uses dyes like red dye 40, yellow dye 5, blue 1, as well as butylated hydroxyline or something like that. Okay, so let's just get this straight. He says the Canadian version, which according to them uses natural coloring derived from actual blueberries and actual carrots, is the Canadian version. But the U.S. version, which uses dyes, this is their words, not mine, red dye 40, yellow 5, and blue 1, as well as butylated hydroxyline, is false. That he's saying that the U.S. version actually is different than the Canadian version. So their own story says Canadians use things derived from fruits and vegetables. U.S. version uses dyes, but RFK is lying because he's saying that the Canadian and the U.S. version are different. You tell me, didn't that sound like the truth? He's literally saying what they are so demented. Why would you say that the Canadian version is different when your own story just proved that he was right? They proved he was right. Unbelievable. By the way, I want to take this another step. They're going after the nominees, right? We got a lot of them. One of them is now Pete Hegseth. And what are they going after him about? Well, first, his management style. Apparently, he hasn't managed the Department of Defense before, though I don't know who would have. I mean, that's a stupid thing. He was a major in the Army, twice Bronze Star recipient, graduate of Princeton, ran a veteran service organization, the Concerned Veterans from America, deployed 3 times, but that's not good enough, right? So now what are they going after him? Not his policies or whatever. It's now his tattoos. And what's the tattoo that they have a problem with? It's this. The Jerusalem cross. The Jerusalem cross, a symbol of his Catholic faith. Now, I've said this before, I don't like to get into someone's faith and their relationship with God. But you're saying that because he has the Jerusalem cross on his chest, that's how some like anti-Semitic thing. Do you know how many rabbit holes you have to go down to get that one right? I mean, he's proud of it. He's proud. He talks about his faith and all this stuff, and then this is what they said. And then, by the way, I want to play this clip from his interview with Sean Ryan. They said it's an insider threat, and they wouldn't let him guard his National Guard unit guard Biden during the inauguration because they thought he was an insider threat. Take a look.
I was deemed an extremist because of a tattoo by my National Guard unit in Washington, D.C. And my orders were revoked to guard the Biden inauguration. Jerusalem cross tattoo, which is just a Christian symbol.
Is that
This is the one.
Is that the tattoo?
Yep, right here. This one is what got me disinvited. I'd never had orders revoked before. I mean, listen, it's a standard deal. You remember after January 6th, everyone was in Washington, D.C. Like Nancy Pelosi had the parking garages full of National Guardsmen. My commander called me a day before tepidly and was like, Major, you can just stand down. We don't need you. We're good. I'm like, what do you mean? Everybody's there. He's like, no. He couldn't tell me. When I was writing the book, I reached out to somebody in the unit who could confirm with 99.9% certainty because he was in the meetings and on the emails. Nope, someone inside the DC Guard trolled your social media, found a tattoo, used it as an excuse to call you a white nationalist, an extremist, and you were specifically by name orders revoked to guard the inauguration because you were considered a potential threat.
How is that? It's a cross.
Guys, I just want, so you might be saying, okay, Sean, well, you're a friend of Pete's and you're defending him. So I went and I looked on Wikipedia. This is the left, right? Left-wing Wikipedia. It says this: the Jerusalem cross, also known as the fivefold cross or cross and crosslets, is a heraldic cross and Christian cross variant consisting of a large cross potent surrounded by 4 smaller Greek crosses, one in each quadrant, representing the spread of the gospel to the 4 corners of the earth. Oh my gosh, Pete Hegseth, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, how dare you spread that word? Widely popularized during the Christian Crusades in the Holy Land, it was used as the emblem and coat of arms of the Kingdom of Jerusalem after 1099. That's Wikipedia. They're left-wing. So that's what they're saying it is. Gosh, can't believe that Pete Hegseth is helping to symbolize spreading the Gospels. Darn you, Pete Hegseth. But that's where this is going. Remember, they went after one of the previous nominees because they had been a member of the Knights of Columbus. This is where they are. You want to know? But I actually found a buddy of mine sent me this over the weekend. You want to know why Trump is so important right now? This is the priorities of the USDA. Go to their website, usda.gov. You don't have to dig. Right on this thing. Our priorities. Number 1, racial justice. Number 2, climate change. I'm sorry. You're the Department of Agriculture. Maybe agriculture could be your number 1, or maybe even number 2. Maybe that could be it. Maybe your number 2 priority is agriculture, farmers, food. Your number 1 is racial justice. Your number 2 is climate change. This is the problem with government today. Do your job. What is going on here? All right. I've got Reince Priebus on tap. He was Trump's first chief of staff, former RNC. He was just down at Mar-a-lago. I want to get his insight. But I just want to say this first and foremost. This is different. Why is Trump, the media is all trying to be like, he's playing 3-dimensional chess. He's trying to appoint this guy to cover for this. No. Anyone who tells you that's a moron. President Trump is appointing the people that he wants, that he knows will fight. It's not about their agenda. So everyone who's freaked out about Bobby Kennedy leading HHS because he's not pro-life, I get it. But understand it's President Trump's agenda, who is pro-life, who has stood up for life, and that the deputies will take care of that. That's the problem. Everyone's digging in everyone's past. Oh, what did they say in the past? As long as you get the job and the reality that this is about serving President Trump, then you're good. And Bobby gets that. But the media wants to, oh, he's doing this because, no, he's doing this because he believes in these people. And I'm just, look, I get it. All these people are suddenly calling me, Sean, I've decided to go back into government. You were silent for the last 5, 6, 7 years. You didn't stand up for President Trump. You didn't fight for him. So now suddenly you want a job because it's cool again? No bueno. Not going to happen. That's what's happening. You know, there are some concerns that I hear about people getting through the Senate and confirm President Trump's going to fight for these folks because they fought for him. And if the Senate doesn't want to do their job, that's why they're floating this recess appointment thing. I think they're happy to use the confirmation process. But the reality is that they're going to, he expects these senators to vote for them. These are his people that will transform government, make us more effective and efficient as a government. He wants them. He's made it clear that he wants these people, and the Senate better get the message. All right. I want to talk a little bit about his other appointments, though. I want to bring in, before I do that, the first chief of staff who was critical in the transition of President Trump. He led the transition last time. Was his first chief of staff, led the RNC, was my boss there, Reince Priebus. Before I get to that, though, you guys have heard me talk all the time about beams, dream powder, and how this is so effective. I always have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep, and I take beams, dream powder. Now, I've told you guys before, this is the cinnamon cocoa flavor. I love this one. I also have taken the brownie flavor, but guess what? Guess what? I know the holidays are coming. Look at this. I just got this in the mail Saturday. White chocolate peppermint, just in time for the holidays. This stuff is amazing. I've taken magnesium, melatonin in the past. They've worked okay. But this has it all. Melatonin, magnesium, reishi, apigen, theanine, all that in one amazing, delicious thing. I take one scoop, put it in water. You've seen the videos that I put up. I love this stuff. And 30 minutes later, when your head hits the pillow, you're out like a light. So if you want to try this, and athletes and professionals are doing it, trust me, I do it every night. And when I don't, I know the difference. Trust me. So go try the Beam and get the different flavors. I'm going to try the peppermint one tonight just because I want to make sure it's different. You can get up to 40% off when you go to shopbeam.com/Spicer and use code Spicer, get 40% off. Shopbeam.com. All right. I want to bring in our guest, Reince Priebus. Reince, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be on, Sean. Great.
All right. So you were down at Mar-a-Lago. Just paint a picture. What's it like down there? How are decisions getting made? Who's around him?
Well, I mean, it's you were there. You remember it was obviously very similar to 2016. All of his loyal partners around him. There was Linda and Howard Lutnick and Susie Wiles and many other people running around, and people were waiting for interviews in the lobby. And the transition office is actually out in West Palm Beach, which is a little bit away. I mean, so it was a little different than the Trump Tower experience that we had when we were in Trump Tower. I do think there was an advantage of being in Trump Tower because we had both the transition staff, the RNC, the campaign, all in one spot. And then the interviews were taking place a couple of floors up, but they're managing it well. I mean, they seem to have figured it out, and they're doing the same thing and going through and ticking through all these jobs. And for the most part, I think they're cruising at a pretty quick speed.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I was reminding people I got announced, you were right out of the gate, but then I didn't get announced until December 22nd. So there's a lot. I mean, this is all, we're still in November. We haven't even hit Thanksgiving. You mentioned Trump Tower, though. The thing that's interesting is, you remember people would get paraded up either at Trump Tower or at Bedminster. There's less of a show this time. Why do you think that is?
Maybe it's because the president's just saying, look, I know what I want to do. I want to get it over with, and I want to get going. I mean, I do agree with you. We sort of put on in 2016, we had a reality TV show. I mean, for as much talk there is about 2016, I mean, the truth is it was pretty buttoned down as far as this operation is concerned on the interviews. And remember, it was the timing, the cars coming up to drive in Bedminster, them getting out of the car, someone taking them in, doing the interview, then having the exit in the discussion with the press, and then the wave. I mean, it was an amazing thing. If you go back to 2016. I know people say, "Oh, we didn't like the cabinet." Well, they loved the cabinet until they didn't like the cabinet. I mean, it was
Right.
an amazing cabinet that, now we don't like the cabinet. Well, we'll see. I think that they're doing a great job here, and we can get into that a little bit more. But certainly, some picks are more controversial than others. But I also think Trump is basically saying, "Hey, here's the middle finger. I won, you didn't, and I'm the one that went to hell and back 10 times. You didn't. So these are my picks now."
Yeah, I feel like the big difference is, Trump was an outsider in 2016, and there were a lot of people who was saying, from a wide variety of different groups who would say, I think this person is good for ambassador to this or director of this program. I get the sense this time, and I think this is what you were alluding to, where he's saying, I know who I want. I want Matt Gaetz. I want Reince Priebus. I want Bob Smith. I want whomever. And so show me some names, but I think I'm going to go with who I want because I know who's going to fight for me. And I don't need you to throw some random people out that I don't know.
Well, and also there's a big, as you know, huge emphasis on loyalty. As I said the other day, people are surprised about Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz I watch a lot of Trump rallies. Number one, I'm interested to see what he's saying, but I'm also I think it's very entertaining. So I would sit there, get a glass of wine and put it on my iPad and watch. Matt Gaetz was at almost every single rally. It wasn't like this is a secret to people. I'm shocked by how many people seem surprised by this stuff. It's like he was there every step of the way. I guess I'd be more surprised he wouldn't be involved, So, and I remind people, it was Donald Trump going in and out of court every day. It was Donald Trump that was, supposedly going to go to jail, and all this stuff was going on. Mar-a-lago was raided. And in a lot of ways, he's shaking his opposition to their core. Like, I'm going to make you nervous. I'm going to make you shake in your boots because you did this to me. And by the way, he told people he was going to do this. I just don't understand the surprise at all.
So I said this at the time a couple of weeks ago, right before the election. I think it was. No, it was after the election. It had to be. You made a comment on This Week that I thought was really interesting. And it was this. The media was outraged that a comedian made a stupid, bad joke at a Trump rally about Puerto Rico. And everybody went bananas. Oh my God, this is going to cost them whatever. And when you were on This Week, the ABC show after the election, you said, just stop for a moment and realize that mainland Puerto Ricans voted for Trump, right? And then the island of Puerto Rico just elected the former national committee woman to the RNC. The legislature flipped. And I was like, I thought that was so instructive because the media loses its mind about everything. But in this particular case, and there's several others that we could point to, but I thought that was so instructive because they wanted us to be so outraged. And yet you were pointing out the fact that really, because the very people who should be outraged the most just overwhelmingly voted for him.
Exactly. I mean, you look at Osceola County, south of Orlando. I pointed that out at 9:30 Eastern time, 8:30 or whatever it was. I said, wait a second, look at this county. Donald Trump is winning one of the most Puerto Rican heavy counties in all of Florida. And then Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, who was actually, just a small correction to you, she was the chairwoman of the Republican Party of Puerto Rico. So she's even more out there as a Republican. Committee woman's a little bit more nebulous. What does that mean? She's the chairwoman of the Republican Party of Puerto Rico. She won. The legislative races, they practically swept through the island. And my point was, and I was just saying, wait a second, all this talk, and I have to say to our Republican friends in the Senate, they love just adopting these talking points like, oh, if Democrats win, they're going to make Puerto Rico and D.C. a state. My only point was, hey, if we keep going the way we're going, can you imagine if Donald Trump delivers for Puerto Ricans in Florida and in Puerto Rico, and we have some kind of alliance, and our party spends $1 billion over the next few years cultivating Hispanic voters around this country. They could be Republicans forever, and we would wish Puerto Rico to be a state because we'll have 2 more senators and a few more Congress people. So, I just think we need to stop keeping our mindset in the same old way that we've been talking over the years, because Donald Trump did better with Hispanics, Arab voters, Jewish voters, black voters, non-educated I mean, across the board. The only three areas that I think, the last time I checked, the only three areas that the Democrats did better with: non-religious people, college educated people, and people who make over $100,000 a year. Those are the only three areas they did better. I mean, does that sound like the Democrat Party to you?
Well, the funny thing is the non-religious thing worries me. Fewer people going to attend services weekly. Like that, the idea that their coalition now is people who don't have faith is a bit scary, and rich people.
And they don't care about the cultural problems that are facing the country. I mean,
Right.
they're the ones that don't care about third graders reading on, about, making trans decisions when you're in third or fourth grade. They don't care about, his, her, he, him, or some of these other crazy things going on in our school. So, yeah, maybe they don't care. Maybe they do. Maybe that's not fair. But there's got to be a reason why Democrats are doing better with non-religious people.
I think that to me the best ad that Trump ran is when the voiceover said something like, he cares about you, she cares about they them, and it was a perfect synopsis of the difference between the two candidates.
Well, and what the Democrats have used to do is they were somehow able to knit together all these sort of groups all over the place, and this group over here and that one, and they put it all together and have just enough working people that were loyal to the Democrat Party, and they could put it together. I don't know how they could be so off. And I like you, I was not shy about my predictions as far as what I thought would happen. I thought he was going to get 312 or 304 electoral votes. I stuck with that for months before at least a month before the election. I think that the media, I think they were bamboozled by these never Trumpers. And they had it in their brain somehow that this represented some hidden swath of the electorate because of these folks that are making money out of being never Trumpers. By the way, most of these guys are paying their mortgages on this stuff. It's the sort of this is their altruistic gift to society. What they forgot to tell people, that they're getting rich off of being never Trumpers. But go back to the story. The media believed this nonsense, and somehow they thought that there was this ribbon of society that was going to put Kamala Harris over the top, and it doesn't exist.
Sorry to interrupt this conversation, guys, but I just got to tell you, if you're running around as much as I have, you know what you need? Gravity Defyer shoes. Now, I've used both the running shoe and the training shoe. When I went to play pickleball with producer Ronnie there, I put on a new pair just for pickleball and for outside. But I've got like 3 different pairs now of Gravity Defyer shoes. I've got knee and hip issues. I love these things. They give me the comfort and the support that I need with my situation. They are the most comfortable shoes I've ever owned. They have this thing called Verso technology, which is like the stuff they build trampolines. You are going to love it. Love it. They've got these custom insoles that come with it. So you get to have a second insole that if you like it, if it works, I take them out, but they come free with the shoe, and it's a great deal. And by the way, they've got sandals and shoes. If you go to gdefy.com, you can see it's now they've expanded the line. So I think I'm going to start getting actually more stuff. I'm going beyond the sneakers, but I've got 3 different pairs that I use all the time. You can see the ones that I play pickleball. Use code SPICER30 at gdefy.com. You get $30 off your order of $150 or more. These are going to be great holiday gifts. Guess what? Don't tell my family, but I think a few of them are getting that. So go to gdefy, Gravity Defyer, but it's gdefy.com. Use code SPICER30 for $30 off. All right, back to the conversation. All right, I want to get to the media in a second, but the first question I want to ask you, it's always tough asking someone from the opposite party to critique the other side. But after we lost in 2012, I think one of the greatest things that you championed was that the party looked not at just itself. I tell people all the time, the RNC is a building with like 200 people. But the Growth and Opportunity Project was an opportunity for us to look at how the party writ large did business. And we talked about bringing in third party groups to shoulder the financial burden of certain tasks like data and research, things like that. And I don't know that we would have won and be in the same place had we not had that family fight, talked about what we needed to do, what we needed to spend money on, whatever. Do you think that from what you gather right now, the Democrats are willing to engage in that kind of effort, or are they just going to sweep this under the rug and pretend nothing happened?
Well, it depends who they bring in as chair. I mean, they know they have to engage in this, in examining what they're doing as a party. And just as a reminder of them, before anyone poo-poos this stuff, because I know what the talking points are, that report this report was about the mechanics and the detail of engagement in the community on a year-round basis, being committed to boring stuff like data, targeting, turnout, the mechanics of running a party. That's really what this growth and opportunity report, or what they call the autopsy, really was. It wasn't running away from our core beliefs. It was actually committing ourselves to getting into communities on a year-round basis. But the issue I think Democrats have is that they're not embracing 75% issues. So you think about America first. What is it? Number one, I mean, in a basic way, number one, secure the border and protect the American worker. Well, who doesn't want to do that? I mean, when you talk about securing the border and protecting the American worker, and you're saying, hey, this is crazy, confront China, who's ripping off the world. Another America first basic, right? Who's not for that? The third one, stop endless wars and bring our troops home. Most people agree with that. Now, they're not on the right side of those issues. Do you think that boys should be competing against girls in sports? Another 75% issue. They're on the wrong side of it. So somehow or another, they've gone from the 1990s Bill Clinton Democrat of welfare reform, economic reform, government reform, and they've somehow turned into this rich, non-religious, graduate degree or better group of people. I would go back to the basics if I were them, and I'd figure out, okay, how are we going to be a party that can put out issues that 75% of the people would say yes to? That'd be the first project.
Yeah, I agree. And I hope I explained it well, because I think that's the Growth and Opportunity Project was about how to do business better, how to win better, how to engage more, mechanics, logistics, use of federal dollars more effectively, and how to be a better party. So, but you touched on the media. And I still, I mean, literally as we were getting ready for you, I got two senior national correspondents that texted me, who in my text I haven't talked to in 7 years. Hey, can we catch up? I want to talk to you about how we missed all this. And I'm like, no, we didn't miss it. I think that fundamentally they don't get it. They don't want to get it, because there's an opportunity to talk to folks and understand the mechanics. They don't want to. So my question to you is this: if you put your hat back on as chief of staff, and you were engaging with the new comms team, and what would your advice be to them? Like, for example, I think that Trump campaign effectively used long form podcast and new media and independent media very effectively. And I would say, hey guys, I don't want to be prescriptive, but think about how we can be different and how we can engage more. If you were chief of staff, what would you want to hear from your comms team right now to advance the Trump agenda?
Well, my guess is that some of the things that you wanted to do more of in the beginning, which was including a lot more, we were talking about maybe going across the street, if you remember that time, in a bigger auditorium, adding more people into the room, some of the podcasters, some of the up and coming young, really some of the 18, 19-year-olds out there that are reaching a lot of people. I'd want to figure out, tell me how we could bring this new media, more of it, and keep the old media too, but bring more of the new media into the room. There's not enough space. So can we twice a week go across the street into the EOB and have a day when we're just doing all of this new media twice a week, and then do 3 times a week maybe into the Brady room the way that the way that people are used to it, maybe bring in a few new faces as well there too, or you mix it up the whole way through. But I would want to find out how we could do more of that so that the daily life and the daily events of the White House can get to a broader audience. Because I do think, putting aside the politics, I do think it's good for our country. And given the fact that people are getting their media from their phone, we need to figure out how to keep this engagement alive, because it's important for, I think, if you're a parent or grandparent, we want our kids more engaged into what matters here around the world. And I think that the folks in the White House have an obligation to try and figure out how to continue this connection that they have. Young people around the country, we need to keep connected to what's happening around the world. And the comm staff in the White House have an opportunity to figure out how to better do that.
Yeah, I actually love that idea because I noticed through my kids, and I don't know about you, but like they were much more engaged in this election. And can you use this new medium and these new platforms as the Trump campaign? I mean, you think about the Theo Vaughn and the Nelk Boys, and like those outlets probably normally don't talk politics the way they do, but Donald Trump goes on them. And if you can keep that relationship going, that will benefit the party 40 years from now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they can do it. I mean, I hope that, and I think that Susie and the team that they've got there, James Blair that's coming in, and the new press secretary, I think they totally get it because they lived it. They saw what this new media platform did for them in making Donald Trump a lot of fun and interesting, and doing the McDonald's thing and the garbage truck and just everything, the dancing. I mean, it's all just all over the place. I've got to keep it going.
So you mentioned Susie Wiles and James Blair, who's coming in as a deputy chief of staff. He was a fan favorite of the show. I mean, that guy, he crushed it every time.
Show a lot. He did a great job.
Oh my God! Like
James did something. I talked a lot with James along the way, and I'm a huge fan. And it was a little different, allowing some of this outside stuff to come in and handle a lot of the voter contact. I won't bore your listeners, but it's a super important part of campaigning, which is you take all the data and you find out who you're targeting, why you're targeting, what messages work with the target, what their propensity level is to support Donald Trump. And then you have you're knocking on their door, you're getting an absentee ballot in their, a request form in their hands, you're interfaced with the municipal clerks, you're going back to the door to make sure the absentee ballot gets turned in, you're checking them off the list. Now, I probably bored some of you watching this, but this is what winning is all about. And they did a great job of marrying both the traditional party activity, the outside activity. People weren't shooting at each other. You didn't see a lot of people, killing each other in the press about, oh, this is stupid or it's brilliant, and none of that.
Don't you think, Reince? But that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the media, which is they came up with a new method of how to do voter contact, and it worked. I mean, I've told people all the time, does it matter when someone knocks on your door and says, "Hi, Mr. Priebus, I wanted to see if you were supporting Donald Trump and what issues matter to you, because I'm going to enter it into this little iPad that I have here that'll feed back to headquarters. Who pays your salary as long as it's getting done?" And the media kept mocking it, saying, "Oh, they're working with these outside groups, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point." And at the end of the day, it was probably a really smart decision.
Yeah, and then they had it was a smart decision, and it made when it started coming around, I got it. I mean, it made at first it made sense as a theory. I mean, it worked, but as a theory, just so your listeners understand this, the way you can really understand politics is understand campaign finance rules. So what type of money can you use in politics? So basically, parties and candidates, to keep it simple, they get a cheaper rate to buy TV ads than a company or a super PAC does. So if I'm the Republican Party of Wisconsin or the RNC, I can buy 5 times more ads than a super PAC because I get a cheaper rate. But traditionally, the party has always not done that, and they've more done the ground game, the voter contact operation is person to person, because you can coordinate that information with the candidate. Well, the FEC came up with a rule recently that said that the campaign could now interface with the data, meaning the voter data, what's happening on the ground. So when that rule opened up, it made sense that a super PAC would pay the employees who are doing the door-to-door contact the money, because you have to pay them the same amount. It doesn't matter if you're paying someone $20 an hour from a super PAC or $20 an hour from a campaign. And then said to the RNC and the campaign, you pay for all the ads because you get a cheaper rate. So everything flipped within 2 months in this campaign, and it worked.
I know. And but I don't mean to harp on this, but I feel like it's like if we're not doing it the way the Democrats are doing it, the media says, well, that can't work. And we proved it in 2016, and it got proved again in terms of how we worked together the first time. They said the RNC never plays this kind of role, and we did, and we won. This time, third parties never played.
People forget something else. In 2016, we swamped the Democrats in 2016. They didn't have a DNC. People forget Obama forgot about the DNC. They didn't fund it. I mean, we were both lucky, and we worked hard, and we swamped them. This time, they outfoxed them with the use of money and how they decided to use TV money and ground game money, and they outsmarted them. With less money, I think they actually got more done with less money.
You mentioned James Blair, who was the political director. He's now a deputy chief of staff. Is there somebody that has been named so far, cabinet or staff-wise, that you're excited about because maybe it's not as sexy, but you kind of are like, that person's going to really do really well in this particular job?
Well, I mean, I've already said. I mean, I think that Susie, I think she's well positioned. I think that she has a huge say over the staff picks, which is important. There isn't sort of this 2 or 3 headed situation going on, and it's no offense anyway. It was a different time. I think the president is very comfortable with the situation he's walking into. So I think it's all in all. To me, I think it's going to work out great.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I think Bill McGinley as White House counsel is a brilliant pick. He was there last cycle. He understands the building. He understands Trump. And I think that's going to make a difference. I talked to, you mentioned the 3-headed, what was it, dragon or tiger? But I talked to one of the heads, Steve Bannon, on Friday, and he mentioned that he thinks that Trump should fire the head of the FBI day one. Is that something that, like, considering what happened last time we dealt with the FBI, with Comey, and everything that came of that? I know it's different now because they're not investigating Trump, but should that maybe be, number 4 or 5 on the list, or should it be number 1 like Bannon suggests?
Well, I mean, I think it probably is going to be number 1 because I think the president's been thinking a lot about this over the years, and he's had firsthand experience in dealing with interviews, subpoenas, depositions, court hearings. I mean, I think he's ready to tackle this issue head on. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not a day one issue. And if he's not comfortable with who's leading the FBI, then it's going to be his prerogative to fix it. And I think he's made it pretty clear that that's what he's going to do.
So the last thing I want to ask you about is the confirmation process. So I've talked to some folks about this, and basically they said, hey, they've asked my opinion. Do you think Trump can count on the Senate? And I said, well, you got to give him a shot. Thune says that these guys will get expedited through. They're going to keep it going. And if Democrats screw around, they'll deal with it then. I tend to believe that the smart move is let Thune prove himself, that he should get these through. What is your advice to the Senate when it comes to these nominations?
Well, I mean, it's Donald Trump's prerogative to put these people through. And if they're competent to do the job, then they should be confirmed. But, no one is perfect, first of all. The Senate has a right to examine these folks, but the idea that someone's mistakes that might be more public than our own mistakes, or everyone, no one's perfect. You know, the Bible says that there's not one single righteous person on earth, not one, Jesus, but other than that, not one. So I think that has to be the first step. The second thing is I think that they need to start with yes. And then if they can't stay on yes, then they need to have a really good reason for why they can't stay on yes. Don't start on no, and don't start on maybe. Start on yes. It's the president who won, popular vote, outperformed across the board in a historically stunning victory. Start with yes and go from there.
All right. Reince Priebus, thanks for sharing the insight with us. We really appreciate it.
All right, Sean, thank you.
What a show with Reince. That was awesome. The insight, unbelievable. You're only going to hear that here. Guys, tomorrow, Dr. Drew is going to be here. Alex Clark, we're going to really delve into the Maha movement. So much to go to. Sign up for my free newsletter at SeanSpicer.com. I have all those pictures of Mar-a-Lago, by the way, up on my Instagram. I tweeted a few out. Follow me on social media. And then obviously the Front Row Joe's movie, if you're interested. Front Row Joe's movie. You can check it out there. SeanSpicer.com, though, has it all. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.